Inspired Writing. You're in the right place whether you're just getting started out as a writer or you've written a few books already. This week, I want to talk about whether or not there's any rules in the writing process. And if there are, can you break them? Because close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Well, I would beg to differ. I think it actually counts in writing as well. Let me explain. There's definitely rules in writing, especially when it comes to grammar and spelling. So you want to make sure that you got all of that as clean as you can, because otherwise you're just going to annoy your reader. But there's also expectations of a reader in your genre. And if you've ever gone out for feedback, or if you haven't done it yet, you're going to find that you get all kinds of writing advice and you can't possibly follow it all. For instance, if you send it to 5 friends, your book that you've just written or a scene that you've just written, they're all going to have a different opinion about what you should do with it. So how do you know when you need to change it and when you just need to go with your gut? Well, the first thing to know is that when somebody, especially a reader that isn't trained to look at a manuscript, like an editor or a book coach might be, or an agent or a publisher, if you get opinions, they're just that. They're opinions, right? They're personal taste. They could be personal taste, but it might be a good indication that something's wrong. They may not know how to fix it, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. And you're the author, so you're the writer. You can change it, but know that sometimes it's an indication that something isn't quite working for your reader. So it's really important to get it right, or it's really important to take a look at what they're complaining about or what their preference is, and take a look and see if you think that it has merit. But there are also lots of other advice that you will get from professionals in the industry, including expectations in your genre, word count, story arc, what the cover should look like. There's tons of things that you need to look at. So how do you know when you need to follow that advice and when you just go out on your own? Because a lot of us writers love the creative aspect of it, right? And we want to be completely creative. And so we say, well, I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to do it my way, and my book is going to be different. Well, the first thing that you need to consider when you decide whether or not you should break out and do your own thing is, what are your goals for your book, right? Pretty simple, but think about that for a moment. So are you going to self-publish the book? Are you going to chase a traditional publisher and try to go that route? Or is this a really specific book that you're maybe writing for friends and family, or for, if you're writing a business book for somebody in your niche, or is there like a particular small audience that you're going after? Because that will determine whether or not you need to follow all of the rules. Now, if you are going after a traditional publisher, I'm going to say, learn everything that you can about your genre, what the expectations are, what's being done in that genre, and do as many of those things as you can, because you want to make sure that you don't give those traditional publishers any reason to say no to your book. So when talking with writers in the industry, I've heard this a few times, but I hear this, which is basically that a traditional publisher right now is looking for that next big book that's exactly like that huge book that did really, really well, except completely new and fresh and different. And I know that that's impossible, but what it's basically saying is it follows a lot of the same patterns or the rules or the expectations, and yet has a really fresh twist. So when you're looking at that, if you're looking at word count or expectations of the genre, I would stay, or even style choice and grammar, get as much of that out of the way as you can and make it as good as you can, and get lots of eyes on that before you're going to traditional publishing, so that you don't give them any reason to say no to your project. Because what you want to do is eliminate all of those strange things that would give them a reason to think that it would be too big a risk, right? While still keeping true to your vision for the book. If you're looking to self-publish, you can go a little bit differently, but you still might disappoint readers if you create a cover that is completely different from anything else in your genre. Your readers, especially if they're looking online, might never even pick up your book. So pay attention to those things, even if you're going the self-publishing route. Or word count, expectations of your reader. You might disappoint your readers if you call it a certain thing, like a fantasy romance and then you don't follow the tropes or the expectations or the story arc. So just know that it depends on what you are looking for. The second thing, so that was your goals. And the second thing I want you to think about when you're talking about whether or not your book is the exception to the rule and you can do anything you want, right? Is number two, you kind of gotta know the rules before you break them. So I like to say that you can break rules, but only if you have a really good reason and it serves the story, right? So not knowing the rules is not an excuse to just saying I can do whatever I want. I would spend the time, learn what the expectations are, read everything that you can in your genre so that you know specifically if you are breaking the rules that you have a good reason for doing it. And there's lots of room for that. But don't break all the rules, break one or two in each book, right? And then number three, I want you to think about what you're trying to say to your readers and how that will come across. Because sometimes when we break rules and we mix things up, the message gets lost. So make sure that you're really clear on what it is that you want to say to your readers and respect those readers. Give them really clean writing so that they can translate that book that's exploding in your mind and then you get it onto the page. You want it to explode in your reader's mind too. And if you break too many rules or you don't spend the time to learn your craft and to get the grammar right and to get the spelling right, yes, but also to follow exactly, what your readers are expecting, your story might get lost and you might not be able to actually get it across in the way that you meant to. So the bottom line is, after you've looked at all of that, take feedback from the experts, okay? Don't worry too much if your neighbor doesn't like it or if your cousin thinks that you should swap the scenes. Take advice from the experts, take a look at what's being done in your genre, and then if you have a really good reason to break that rule, then go ahead, but know that you might be eliminating some chances, but if it serves the story and it does it awesome, then it's probably okay. And the other thing is, if you find that there's like 10 things that you need to fix and you become overwhelmed, then pick two. Because here's the thing, close counts in writing, just like horseshoes and hand grenades. And every single book on the market today, you could find an exception to every single rule that you've ever heard in writing. You could find me a book and say, but Suzy, this book does it. You're right, it probably does. But if you can be as close as you can to it and only break the rules that serve the story, so if you've got 10 things that you think you could fix, but you fix two, then those two things will make your writing stronger, it'll make it better for your reader, and it'll give you a much bigger chance that readers and publishers and editors will pick your story up. So I hope this is super helpful to you, and I'd love to hear what you think and whether or not you're gonna break the rules in your next story. Until then, happy writing!